Hi, in this video I'm going to be comparing two vintage Canon manual focus lenses. The 50mm 1.4 FD from 1971 and the 50mm 1.4 FD from 1979. So what are the differences between these lenses? First of all, the 1971 lens is all metal construction with a rubberized focus ring. It is not multi-coated. This lens was introduced when the Canon F1 professional camera came out. It weighs 370 grams or 13 ounces, so it's a hefty lens. It's got a lot of weight to it, and it has the breech lock mount. And the way that works, I'm just going to put it on the adapter here. You just match the red dots. There's a red dot on the adapter, there's a red dot on the breech mount, the silver ring towards the back of the lens. Match that with the red dot, and you just turn the breech lock and it tightens the lens. Okay? Also, let's take that off. This lens stops down to f/16 with half stops all the way through. It takes 55mm filters, and most of the other specs are similar to the other lens. This is not multi-coated, whereas the newer lens is. The 50mm 1.4 FD from 1979 is mostly plastic construction. It is much lighter. It weighs 235 grams or 8.3 ounces, so it's considerably lighter, good bit smaller. It takes 52mm filters, and by this time, Canon kind of updated the mount. So no longer did you have that chrome ring at the back that you had to turn. It just mounted like a regular bayonet mount lens. But this lens will work on the older cameras as well. It'll work on the original Canon FT from the 60s. Okay, the difference is to remove it, whereas with the breech lock mount, you had to turn this ring in the opposite direction from which you mounted it. You just have a lens release button on the lens itself. You just press that in and you can remove the lens. Unlike a lot of other cameras, Minolta, Nikon, where the lens release button was on the camera. This lens is multi-coated. Now I use both these lenses, and we're going to see some pictures in a little bit, on my Nikon Z8 with the Fotasy FD to NZ adapter. And these adapters are really cheap. I think I paid under $20 for it. Now, one thing with this adapter, it has two settings on the side that mounts to the lens. Lock or open. In order to mount the lens, it must be set to lock. So you just turn this ring, there's a red dot where the lens mounts, set that to lock. We're going to do the breech lock FD first, just match the red dots, and you turn the breech lock and it's secure. Once you do that, you must turn this ring to open. When you turn it to open, the lens will stop down. If you left it set at the lock position, you could be turning the aperture ring and the aperture would remain open. So that's important when being used on a mirrorless camera, that you set it to open so the lens will stop down. A quick way to check, of course, is just to look into the lens. Make sure you see it stopping down as you turn the aperture ring. Now we're going to mount the newer lens, and some people refer to this lens as the new FD. We're just going to call it FDN for now. You also see it referred to as FDN. Okay, so we make sure the Fotasy is set to lock, match the red dot on the lens to the red dot on the adapter, and just turn it and it clicks, it locks in place. We then turn the ring on the adapter to open and the lens will stop down. To remove it, It's just the reverse. We press the button on the lens and we can remove the lens. Both these lenses took a bayonet mount lens hood, which is really nice. I unfortunately don't have them, but they mount to the outside of the front of the lens, and then your filter would screw in onto the lens itself, onto the threads on the lens. Both these lenses have 8-bladed diaphragms. They are both the same basic optical formula, 7 elements in 6 groups. So, the main difference is the mount went from breech lock to regular bayonet mount. Again, like I said though, both these lenses will work on the newer cameras, the AE1, the FT, the FTB, the F1, all those cameras, these lenses will work whether it be breech lock or the bayonet mount lens. And these lenses, in fact, all manual focus lenses that can be adapted, work out great on the Z8 because it has excellent focus peaking and you can also zoom into the image for focus. So let me just mount one of these. Let's mount the newer one. So I had it set to lock, I mounted it, turned it to open, and now I'm going to mount it right onto the Z8. And one thing you must do with manual focus lenses that do not have a CPU, and most manual focus lenses do not, is you must set on the camera non-CPU lens data. And if you do that, if you set the non-CPU data into the camera for each lens, then you will have the availability of matrix metering as well as vibration reduction. So it's nice with these older manual focus lenses that you have the ability to have vibration reduction. Okay, so now we're going to go over and let's look at some pictures. Okay, these images were all shot with the camera on a tripod on my dining room table. I set up the mannequin 4 feet from the camera and the flowers were 2 feet behind. And these images, we're just going to be looking at bokeh, color, contrast, and I really think that the 1.4 FD, the older lens, looks better. I think the bokeh is a little bit better on the newer lens. If you look on the right side there, I think it's slightly better, but I'm really surprised at the quality of the older lens. Here we are at f2, and again, I just think there's a little bit more contrast. I think there is a little bit better color with the older lens, and like I said, I'm really surprised at that. Bokeh at f2 is about the same. Now we're at 5.6, and again, I still think the color is better on that older lens. Now there is variation in lenses, and it could be that. Now we're going to look at sharpness, and here we have the one again at 1.4. We have the older lens on the left. You could still see that difference in color and saturation. Sharpness is really close. Upon close examination, I think the newer lens is slightly sharper at 1.4. Again, at 2.0, very close in sharpness, but of course that color, the overall image to me is more pleasing with the older lens. And now we go to 5.6, and the sharpness is pretty much indistinguishable. But as I said, and as I keep saying, I just like the look of that older lens. I'm probably going to have to do more testing. So now I went outside. It was a sunny day, and you could see here the contrast is greater. The saturation is greater with the older lens. I think the sun may have peeked out a little bit more from behind the cloud. I think that could be contributing to the higher contrast. Now we go to 1.4 with both lenses. Again, the older lens on the left. Here the sharpness looks really close. They're both a little soft, which you expect for a 1.4 lens. But again, I think the lens on the left, the older lens, has a little bit better contrast and a nicer look. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Both these lenses you could find on the used market. I'm going to pay a little less, of course, for the older lens. I think I paid a little over $100 for the newer one. I forget what I paid for the other one. I believe it came with a camera body, so I got a really good deal. Okay, so thanks for watching. I come out with a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m., so I will talk to you next time.